This is Take Two.
I'll try and not to swear on this one.
Right.
Anyways, yeah, when it came to the fucking dog, right?
Yeah.
So we got her at like 5 months old and stuff, and we're fucking shrieking on the thing, like literally, just like, you want this one, and you see this one fucking thing, and now she still shakes, like she.
Oh, really?
But I think like she has anxiety,
Yeah.
like 100%.
Yeah.
And it took me so long to accept the fact that my dog has anxiety.
Yeah.
I was like, no.
You're trying to like, listen, no, I'm
No,
going to take
no,
this anxiety
no.
away from
And
you.
also, like, I need to fucking reflect and journal a little bit. Like, if I refuse to believe that my dog has anxiety, let
Yeah.
alone if I were to ever have a child.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And this is someone that has anxiety, but for me, it's different, you know?
Yeah, you're able to.
Like, my
you have
dog
mechanisms to cope with
cannot.
it. Yeah.
No.
Is it separation anxiety? So when you leave,
No.
or is it just generic? Like
It's
just there.
just generic. Like, she'll full on give you a panic attack because she wants to go, like, sleep upstairs.
Oh, okay, right.
You know?
Yeah.
Or, like, it's so sad, but even, like, before a walk, for instance, she starts, like, trembling
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff. She hates walks.
the same with Oreo.
Hates bikes.
She hates walks.
She hates walks.
Oh
But
my
you know
God.
what the issue is, right? So we got her at 5 months old, but she wasn't double vaccinated. It said
Okay.
vaccinated.
Sure.
But they only got the first one.
Okay, yeah.
So then when we took her to the vet, it's like, oh, too late, you know, like you're going to have to start the round again.
Oh.
So between like how many weeks? Is it 6 weeks inside between the first vaccine and the second
Yeah,
one?
yeah.
By the time she went on her first walk in Dublin city centre,
Oh God. Yeah.
she was like 6.5 months old.
Oh right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Think
that's
about
tough.
it.
Yeah.
And she's so she's a bulldog and a dashhound mix.
Okay, yeah.
Basically a dashhound on steroids, right? And you're
That is a crazy mix. I've never heard of that like that before.
No. So you're looking at like the dashhound, like the tan, you know, the black and all
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
but then fucking shoulders of steel, just like walking towards you. She's hilarious. No, she's so funny.
I'm gonna have to see. I'm gonna
But
have to check this
then
out.
6.5 months old, she's like so short, and
Okay.
she's seeing bikes and like lads on scooters just
Yeah.
like pulling it off, and she's like, "Fuck
God.
no."
Yeah, I remember when we first got Oreo, we were living in the IFSC, and like we got her vaccinated and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But when we wanted to bring her for a walk, we had to go downstairs, and she would just park herself. She was like, "I am not going down these stairs." Do you understand? So then we'd have to pick her up and then walk her outside. And I remember the first couple of times we walked her, we brought her out. She was like terrified. She wouldn't move. She'd plonk herself down. So we would do a whole walk with just holding her. Like, you know what I mean? Like she wouldn't walk like
Literally.
5 steps. But then slowly but surely she got better and better and better.
Yeah.
And then by the end, now she loves them.
Yeah.
Now, like if you mention the word walk, like we have to say shul, like the Irish for walk in the house, and that. Because if she hears the word walk, she's gonna go off. Like she'll be
Berserk.
bouncing off the
Yeah.
presses. And
Do you
stuff
have
like
one
that.
or two dogs actually?
I've got 2.
Yeah.
So I have Oreo and Rollo.
All
So-
right.
Yeah. So Rollo is Oreo's younger sister.
Okay.
But like a year apart, so different layers,
Yeah.
essentially. So yeah, it was my mom's dogs. And yeah, like when Oreo came along, I was like, yeah, I'll have her. And then when Rollo came along, I was like, yeah, I'll take her as well. So
Yeah,
then
yeah.
I felt like Oreo was. There was a period when the lockdowns were lifting, there was periods of time where Oreo was on her own, and I didn't want that for her. I think she was really struggling with it. So, yeah, that's why we decided to get Rollo, kind of like a
Company.
you know, my sister's keeper kind of thing. You know,
Literally.
we'll bring her in just to look after this one.
But it makes such a difference. Like
Yeah.
back home, we would have 2 dogs, and the moment that like Susie, so
Yeah.
the youngest, was introduced, it's like they're just a fucking dynamic duo.
They
and
go
you feel
everywhere.
less
Yeah.
guilty leaving them alone as well.
Absolutely. Yeah,
so
and like
good.
they play with each other and like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
sleep beside each other and stuff like
Uh-huh.
that, which is good for them. I
Yeah.
think they have companionship, which is I think good.
So it's a lovely little thing.
Yeah.
What's the crack with Oreo not barking?
So I actually said this as a joke, because Oreo grew up in lockdown without any other dogs around her. She never learned how to bark,
Yeah.
so all she learned how to do was scream. And people are believing me. Like I'm like, yeah, absolutely. She never learned how to bark. All she knows how to do is scream. And yeah, like that's that. Whenever she gets like super excited, she'll just like wah! Like she won't bark. Like she'll just now. I do want to put out a disclaimer. She does bark. She does. Like she's not this weirdo dog that's like struggling or whatever. but she barks at the weirdest times. So I remember there was one time, like myself and two of my friends were chilling out or whatever, and Oreo just started like barking at the back door, like going mad, like, and I think, well, I don't know what it was. We were watching a horror movie or something, because all of a sudden then the three of us were freaked out, and none of us wanted to go out the back garden to see what it was. You know, or another time I was on my own as well, and like watching, like my girlfriend goes down to Tipperary to look after her granny sometimes, and I'll stay up with Oreo or whatever. And I was just sitting there, just me and her, like watching TV, you know, and all of a sudden she jumps up and the hair on the back of her neck goes up. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And then she starts to going mad. I'm like, no, not now, because like, you know, I'm on my own and like I'm afraid of the dark, and I don't want.
And I only have a pug to protect me.
I only have a pug, like, do you know what I mean? But yeah, if a demon came through at me or something, I'd just throw Oreo at it and try and make an escape.
100%. I actually use Maisie as like a little threat detector, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like if I hear something downstairs, I just like feel the dog, and like if the dog hasn't perked up, I'm safe, I'm good.
Okay, yeah.
That's basically
they know. They know. Yeah.
They'd probably know before. I'm assuming.
I hope so.
They'd know before me. The issue is, they're the worst. Like, they're really not that good.
No.
Whenever I, like, the other day I was actually thinking that maybe I should invest in a hurl to like walk alone at night with the dog, you know, as a weapon.
Yeah, of course.
Because the dog is not a good one.
No, yeah.
Like,
that's it. If someone's attacking you, they run over and lick them, kind of thing.
like sometimes I walk around and I'm like, shit, I actually should have gotten a mastiff. Like, I should have gotten all the Dublin dogs. Like, it would have
100%.
made me like fit right into the city. Like, I keep telling people, like, my favorite type of person is a 40-year-old North Sider with veneers and the puppy.
Oh yeah.
Like, that has to, ideally grey tracksuit top to bottom.
Oh yeah.
My
on
favorite.
A gilet, maybe. And a cap.
The gilet, you know,
That's it.
probably his name is Lee or something like that. How are you? You know, well, just grab me. Like, usually they come over, tell me that my dog's fat or something, and I'm like, no, she's on steroids. Like, it's just a mix. And then we're best friends. That's that's
cool.
my favorite type of person.
That is such a funny type of person.
Like,
and they always have jokes.
Characters.
Like,
they're characters. They're so good.
Yeah.
I feel like they're kind of underestimated in terms of like everyone kind of steers away from them. They automatically assume it's going to be like they have the
they
best
can look a little bit
chats.
scary sometimes. Like, I don't lie.
As they should. I should like dress more scary just to be like just so that people like leave me alone sometimes. But what can you do?
100%.
Yeah, they're the best. You grew up in Tala, right?
I did indeed.
What was that like with your childhood and stuff?
Yeah, so like it was mostly good. Like naturally there were some incidents where like I think growing up in an area like that you will run into trouble at some point. But I think most of the people there are really, really good people, really nice people. Neighbours were all really nice. You know, really good, hard-working people. Yeah, like school was a little bit difficult.
Were you the only guy in the school that was mixed race, or was there a little bit of people?
Yes, in like primary school,
Okay.
I was like I was the only kind of mixed race kid in the class. I tell the story about how my mum tells me that when I first came home from school one day, I talked about how there was loads of white kids, there was a couple of black kids, but I was the only brown kid. So I was already starting to differentiate myself from not only white kids but from black kids as well. And yeah, like that definitely led to issues further down the line, like as I went into my teens and stuff. But yeah, like mostly I got on with everyone. You know, naturally there's going to be a couple of people in every area that are out to cause trouble or out to kind of pick on you and stuff like that. And I had those people. But yeah, like they eventually went away. And different things like that. So I always look back fondly on my time in Tala. School, not so much. I had like with some teachers, I had difficulty with them. I think some of the issues from my struggles with identity led to like anger and frustration, and then there was like the passing of my dad when I was 16 as well, and that led me to be a guy who was lashing out and was very angry. It was very like
also you're
quick to
a teenager, like hormones.
Yeah, going crazy.
You know,
like,
literally,
like I was
exactly.
off the scale. So that led to me like getting suspended for fighting and stuff like that. Getting into arguments that were unnecessary with teachers and stuff like that. But as I went through kind of my later school years, then I started to mellow out a little bit. managed to get into Maynooth University and go and study there. But my time in Tallaght definitely gave me loads of life lessons, and taught me about the type of people that I want to be around. So yeah, like I look really fondly on that time.
It's interesting though, because I think that our generation of, so I'm saying like mixed race or black people in their early 20s, late teen years, whatever, from an outside perspective, the one thing that I kind of observe is that you had to figure out your own identity and the race thing, in inverted commas, by yourself.
Yeah.
Especially if you were born in Ireland, parents didn't exactly have the knowledge to like give you that blueprint of like, this is how you navigate this situation, this is how you don't. And sometimes people lack that empathy of understanding, listen, your teen might be extra frustrated than normal because of this identity thing. How often were you probably told like, you're not really Irish though, are you? I was told that a lot. Like it was consistently questioned as I was growing up, by everyone. You know, whether it was you know, school kids. I don't mean by everyone as in like everyone around you, but like at every kind of level I can recall people who were like, oh well, you're not really Irish because your dad is this. So like being told that at, like in school, or out playing on the street, or you know, like after, like as I got older into my like late teens, where I was going to clubs and pubs and stuff after nights out, you know, when you go into a chipper and it's like, all right, I'm just here to get a bar of sausages, like, and all these fellas turn around, they're like, oh, who's this big lad, what's crack, you Samoan, where are you from, are you Brazilian? What's the story with you? And I'm like, I'm from Tallaght. You know, and you could see it like, oh, for fuck's sake, like I was like, come on, where are you really from though?
You know, and like, oh, come on, you don't need to lie to us, kind of thing. You can tell us, you know, where you're really from. We won't buzz off you or anything like that, you know, which is, you know,
it's like, we're racist but we're cool.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, we're racist but we're cool. It seems benign from, you know, probably other people looking on. You know, my friends and stuff like that, they probably just saw it as, oh, those lads are only having a message, like, you know, that's cool. But then when you're going home and thinking about that and going, like, why is it that when I say where I'm from, which is Ireland, other people are telling me that I'm not, or that I'm lying, or that I'm trying to hide some other part of me, and you know, and that's not
enough.
You know, that's not enough, exactly. You know, so that was a bit difficult, like, you know, but like these are all things that I was able to come to grips with when I was, you know, beginning to, I think I'm going to call it reconcile I just did a bookkeeping exam last night where I'm having to do like bank reconciliations and stuff like that. So, you know, the word reconcile is on the brain. So where I was able to reconcile my identity and put it all into, you know, one, like, I suppose, coherent space in my mind, and not be jumping across from this identity to that identity, because I hung around with white kids, black kids, Asians when I was growing up, you know, and looking back on it, I would act differently, you know, around them. I would speak differently. I would be, you know, more, I don't know, like I'd just be more excitable around certain groups and stuff like that. But now, like, I'm the same wherever I go. Do you know what I mean? All of those identities have molded back into one, which brings me a lot of inner peace, which is great.
Exactly.
But you know, for the longest time before that, it was quite difficult.
I'm gonna dissect what you just said there. Would it also be a situation of also growing up, in that the fact that we are I'm assuming you're in your mid to late 20s as well.
Yeah.
Like, as you grow older, you also find out like, okay, this group, maybe like, I'm a little bit like this. Let's figure that piece out as well. There is that like self-reflection as well that comes with it, right?
Yeah.
But when it came to being mixed race, and you said about like forming part of different communities, that is something that I think a lot of people do struggle with when it comes to understanding the struggle. So if you can explain the struggle of What's it like having to like bounce back or just go like, do I belong here? Do I belong there? Like what's...
Yeah, it's the struggle is constant doubting of yourself, and that can lead to significant confidence issues. With those confidence issues comes two things: not believing in yourself when it's time to believe in yourself, or overcompensating for it and overdoing it when you shouldn't. You know, trying to be, you know, the kind of macho man and you know, show yourself as someone who shouldn't be messed with, or you know, when the time comes for you to step up, that you overthink it in your mind and you overstress it. So those were, I think that's the struggle. Like the disconnect in your identity leads to disconnections in, you know, your confidence and your self-esteem, and that leads to behavioral issues that you know are not really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's I suppose how I'd sum up the struggle.
Like, would it be fair to say that along with the journey of life, which is feeling disconnected and not knowing who you are, is doubled up where you have extra challenges put on your shoulders?
Yeah.
With the questions of where do I belong? Who am I part of?
Absolutely. And that, like in my particular case, I had, like, I was disconnected from my African heritage at quite a young age. Now I was still around other people of African descent, but they weren't Senegalese, they were Congolese or Nigerian. I didn't really know any other Senegalese people, so I wasn't really sure of the culture, or you know, what I remember was these guys were all really religious, but they were Christian, and my dad was Muslim. So you know, there were definitely cultural differences there, despite them all being from the continent of Africa. So from being disconnected from my African heritage, I then tried to like overlean into my Irish side to like prove that I was Irish, but I was still getting, you know, shut down and being told, oh, you're not.
Yeah, whatever you do, you get
you're
hit.
not Irish and stuff like that. So that was leading to like, I suppose, greater difficulties for me at the time. Yeah, and like I think it took a lot of like introspection and looking at, okay, well, why am I feeling like this? Like asking myself questions was the way in which I managed to get myself out of it, because for a really long time I was in a hole and I really didn't know how to get out. And instead of working my way out of it, I was just digging as quickly and as hard as I could, you know what I mean, into one side. So, you know, but there was other kind of traumas there that were causing me to act like that as well. But yeah, like it was only when I stopped digging, I was like, okay, hold on, let's take stock here. Where am I? Who am I? What am I doing?
And
what do I want to do?
What was that turning point for you? Where did you go like, okay, hold up, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
What's happening here?
Sure. So I think there was a couple of like inflection points. I remember one day, like for some reason, I just started writing down what was going on in my mind, and I was like, I don't feel like I fit in with white kids. I don't feel like I fit in with black kids. So where do I fit in? And that was the first time where I was like, where do I fit in? And that's the first time when I wrote the question. I was like, oh, okay. So like I'm able to ask myself stuff. So then I started like asking myself more questions, like, you know, what do I want to do? Who do I want to be? You know, and those questions, again, they really helped form part of an identity. There was then, there was then like kind of racial incidents that happened. Myself and my brother were coming home on a Luas one day, and basically we were racially profiled by two security guards. And I had moved out of Tallaght at this time, but my brother was still living in Tallaght, and he was like, "Leon, this happens all the time," and I was furious. I was like frothing at the mouth. I got off at Red Cow to go in and make a complaint. It was closed. Came home, wrote like a 2 A4 page email to Luas saying like, this is absolutely atrocious what happened to me, and they were coming back saying, oh no, it's fine, like don't worry, like, you know, we understand it,
don't make a problem out of it,
you know, don't make a big issue. So then like I was like, no, this is, you know, I'm taking you to court, and I ended up going through 2 rounds of the court. So I lost in the circuit court and then won in the high court.
Can I ask you about that though?
Yeah.
The fact that you lost the first round.
Yeah.
What made you go, no, it's not done yet, like I'm gonna keep going?
I'm like a dog with a bone with some things. There's some things that happen and I won't let them go. I will chase them to the end of the earth.
Yeah.
And that was one of those things.
I get you.
I knew how I was treated.
Yeah.
I knew it was wrong, and I knew that if I was really listened to, I would be able to articulate it well. So,
If I was listened to,
yeah,
I'll
probably.
be able to articulate it well.
Yeah.
That's it. It's the listening bit.
The first court case was an hour and 15 minutes. The second court case was 4 days. Do you know what I mean? So that
Yeah.
goes to show the judge was willing to sit down and go, I'm going to hear this out. I'm going to hear what different sides had to say. You know, in the first scenario, I was on the stand for, I'd say, about 25 minutes. And in the second scenario, and my brother was meant to kind of testify in the first court case as well, and didn't get the opportunity to because he was like, I've heard enough. Like, I don't really need to
Crazy.
hear any other people. But then in the second court case, I went up, my brother went up, the 2 security guards went up, the person who was over security and like personnel and policy and stuff like that had to go up as well. And basically they found that like the Luas were racially discriminating when or were discriminating against people, and that their policy was if someone looked like a description, they just went after that person, which is insane. You can't like, you have to be more informed when you're approaching people in public, because like if you're just going to walk up to people and like treat them like they've done something wrong because they look like someone else, like that is profiling of the highest order. So that's essentially what happened with me and my brother. And I really, like, if I had lost in High Court, I would have went to the Supreme Court. I would have found a way.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
like
mean?
you were determined. Like,
I was going to chase them to the end of the earth.
because a lot of the time, like I remember releasing a very different discussion with someone else who's an artist.
Yeah.
And he was talking about it. And a lot of the comments that came back to me on our discussion was, no, don't make it out to be something that it's not.
Yeah.
This happened regardless of his race.
Okay.
And it's like, no.
Yeah.
Like, so many people just kind of like miss that. It's like, but we're salt of the earth people.
Yeah.
Ireland is not racist, but it's like, because I'm not racist, that means that the country isn't.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, sorry, I don't mean to be speaking on behalf of the country.
No, of course.
But I think in general, probably when it comes to the West and the type of discussions that we have right now, is very much soul-based, therefore everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. People think that if well, I don't call someone the N-word, so you know, no one,
That
no one
definitely
does,
doesn't
it doesn't
happen.
happen. Like, do you know what I mean? I wouldn't have done that in that scenario. So yeah, and I think that's like that's something that we need to get through to people when we're speaking to them, without making them kind of balk and jump and go, oh well, you know, I'm not racist, so I'm going to shut down here and I'm not going to engage. You have to approach these things slowly but surely. You need to try and get them bought in, and you need to, I suppose, get them ready to have an uncomfortable conversation. Like setting out from the outset that, like, look, we're going to have a conversation about racism. This may be uncomfortable. You may feel discomfort at times, but don't worry. That's just natural. It's part of the process. With the messaging that people have received over decades, from whether it's media or social cues or societal, like or like structural institutions in our country and stuff like that, it's quite uncommon that someone won't be a little bit racist. Everyone has biases. Everyone has shortcuts in their brain that tell them this group is like this, that group is like that. This group can be trusted, that group cannot be trusted. If I walk past this person in the middle of the night, cross the road because they could be dangerous. If I walk past this person, it's fine, it's safe. You know, and ultimately, we need to have a countrywide conversation about unconscious bias, how that manifests, the different types of racism, because not all racism is you're an N-word, you're this, you're that, you're you know, a slur or being attacked or anything like that. Racism can manifest itself in many different ways, and that's why it's important that we kind of get people bought into understanding that, and that understanding that racism is not just this explicit form of hatred, that it's how you think, it's how you act, it's how you behave, it's how you interact with others, race and racism ties into all of that and weaves itself in, and you can find yourself very quickly on the wrong end of an unconscious bias that makes you act in a microaggressive way, or makes you act in a way that treats someone or that discriminates against someone, and all of a sudden then cameras are pointed at you saying you're a racist, and they're like, whoa, what? Oh, I'm not a racist. Like I've never been racist in my entire life, but I'm kind of rambling here, but
No, you're good.
basically I think we need to have a countrywide conversation about that, and we need to have an open and honest discussion about how Ireland deals with race. Like, are we really the country of 100,000 welcomes, or are we the country that's tolerant to a point, that we won't kick off if you're quiet, if you're not causing trouble, if you're in a job, if you're in your own house that you've bought, fine. Do you know what I mean? Cool. You can do your thing, you can stay here. But once it's, oh, you need help, or you're a sponger, or you've engaged in crime, you're a scumbag, you should be sent back to your own country. Or, like, even though they may have been born here, like,
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, or you're not working at the moment, you're lazy, you're this, that and the other. So
Yeah.
I think, in Ireland, we need to start having that conversation. Like, are we really, that country that we purport ourselves to be? I think we can be that country. I would love to see Ireland as that country, but I don't think we are right now. And I think it will take a lot of conversation, open discussion, and looking at our attitudes and our thoughts, robustly, not just in a kind of, I'm not racist, so I'm just not going to think about a thing.
But
so yeah,
how do you have that conversation, right? Because a lot of the time I feel like whenever nuance is entertained, it is often presented with immediate defense.
Yeah. Well, people don't want to be seen as that person, and it's funny because when we run anti-bias and anti-racism workshops, which are beneficial for everyone. It shows, it teaches people about the different types of bias that can, manifest. It teaches people about how you can behave in certain scenarios without even knowing. It's not saying that if you do this workshop, you are a racist or you're a biased person.
Yeah.
It's not. Everyone is biased. But people, when they hear, oh, I need to go into this workshop, they're like, I don't want to do that workshop. I don't need to do that workshop. I'm not racist.
Yeah.
That's not me. I don't need to do that. So,
but then you're like, if a CV presented itself to you and it's a name that you can't pronounce, are you going to toss it in the bin?
Yeah.
Or are you going to call them up?
Yeah. Absolutely. And there's been studies that have shown that people, when two CVs are in front of them that are the same but have different names, that you're more likely to call the one that's, Sinead Murphy rather than Ola, so I think people need to not be so not get worked up about this, that this is something that we're gonna have to lift the lid on. We're gonna have to have a conversation about it. There may be parts of it that are uncomfortable, but we've been very uncomfortable by having a lot of racism thrown at us for the last X amount of decades.
Yeah.
So if you can sit down with us for an hour, we'll be happy to kind of walk through the different types of biases that can present themselves, and how to overcome them and make sure that they don't affect how you interact with others.
When it comes to having this conversation now, right? I feel like there's a little bit of pressure on Black people right now to educate white people.
Yeah.
Which I don't find exactly fair. So, let's say for me, right, as a queer person, don't come chatting to me about being queer, honestly. As in, I can tell you my experience, but it kind of ends there.
Right.
Of course, this is a podcast, let's talk.
Of course.
But I feel like there is now a responsibility for you guys to be teachers, that you don't deserve to have that responsibility.
Sure. Yeah, that piece is a bit nuanced as well. I mean, racism, it harms Black people, and that's why we're definitely going to speak about it.
Yeah.
We're going to reveal it when it happens, and we're going to challenge
Exactly.
it. But for white people, racism is not that much of an issue.
Exactly.
Actually, white people can benefit a lot from structural racism. They are more likely to get the house, or get the job, or not experience discrimination, which is quite difficult to deal with. Now, of course, there's strata of that as well, and class works into it, and gender and sexuality works into it as well, and you know, it's all, and obviously living with a disability as well, all mesh into that, and it forms layers.
There's like different types of,
exactly.
the cards you're dealt with in life, and it's like, sorry, you're in third place, you're in first, like
exactly. And that privilege walk is always something that like we try and direct people to show people that like where you are born can have quite a significant impact on your life. Now, of course, you can work your way up through it, but you know, you can't deny that privilege from the get-go. So that's why it's a little bit difficult to get other groups to lead on an issue that isn't particularly affecting them. They're perpetuating it.
Yeah.
So it's, I would love to get to the point where issues in our society are dealt with equally by people who are from a community and from people who are from the community who would generally engage in that oppression. It would be great if racism was being dealt with equally by black people and white people. It would be fantastic. Because I think you need the voices of the people in the room who have felt the oppression so that they can talk through their experiences and what it's like. And then you need the people in the room who, one, are generally in the positions to make change, but two, are generally in the positions where they're in a position to exert that oppression or power or racism. So
yeah, they can call it out behind the scenes.
Exactly. So yeah, I would love to get to that point, but I understand at the moment it is a case that, you know, issues within any sort of community, and it's not like, obviously it's not just the black community, there's queer community as well, there is the disabled community. Naturally they will need to advocate for themselves because other people like are dealing with their own stuff. They're like, I have all these issues, I don't want to work on something that doesn't affect me. So yeah, that's
it, because I think sometimes when I love to look at, I don't know if echo chamber has been in your like it's been a keyword passed around my way a little bit, and I am trying to challenge that a little bit, and one of them is looking at comment sections, even though they're very hard.
Sure.
And a lot of, let's say, words or like the general message from people that aren't welcoming this discussion is very much like, let's leave it be, you know, or not everything has to be about X or Y or Z, not everything has to be about it. And I think that's the difficult thing when you approach it, because I think our generation right now are being labelled as the snowflakes. Everything is a problem, right?
Of course, yeah.
Tired of it. I roll completely.
Yeah.
Because there are like very serious situations that are happening that are being swept under the rug.
Yes.
But then unfortunately on social media or something like that, it's the willy-nilly stuff that gets like the viral whatever and starts the conversation, which is so unfortunate.
Of course, yeah.
How do you navigate that space? How do you go like, no, we're having this, like sit down, we're having this chat. It's not like we're not going to let it go.
Sure. Like it is, that piece that you mentioned there about like the willy-nilly stuff getting like, you know, the attention. You know, there's many things that happen on a daily basis that people expect me to comment on, or my organisation to work on and stuff like that, you know, aren't that big of a deal. You know, when you look at it in hindsight, you know, and then you've got someone coming in and blowing the lid on this and you know saying this is an outrage and this person needs to quit or this person needs to resign or whatever if they've done something wrong, put a foot wrong. You know, the nuclear button doesn't need to be hit on everything. Each, I think, situation that arises, you need to approach to measure. You need to be able to deal with the significance of it with the same level of significance. Because if you go over the top with an issue that other people aren't going to see as a big deal, you're going to push people away from you. You're going to alienate them and like not bring them along with you. When what you need to be doing with people when you're trying to get them to think about racism and understand it is bring them in, help them to understand, educate them rather than you know, beat them with a stick or whatever. So sorry, what was the original question?
I have no idea. I'm just having fun with this. But no, in fairness, I think it's just sometimes people fear, you know, the sensitivity right now. Yeah. That is like on a spectrum, because there is serious shit happening, obviously, and the anger isn't being directed towards that. Sure. But then it's like people are somewhat scared to go, listen, this person is black, but they're wronging me right now, but I'm scared of being labelled as a racist, for instance.
Yeah.
You know, not because of that situation, but it's because of certain sensitivity on social media of things fucking going, they spiral. There
are. And there's some people that look for, like, there are people who look for, there are people who look for things to be mad about. You know, and
that's it. It's like labelling it as that.
You know, I've had, there's been times where I've had, oh my God, I remember one time I had a woman write me a message, and it was about 6 or 7 paragraphs long, and it was like, my child asked me if, you know, I could make her a sandwich, and I said, oh, what am I, your slave? And I had to stop myself and reflect, and you know, I had to write you this big long message asking, is it okay to say, am I your slave? I'm like, well, associating blackness with slavery is the most racist part. Do you know what I mean? And writing to me about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's many other, you know, ethnicities who have
you heard of a diary?
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, so yeah, and like, no, I don't want to, you know, belittle that person's experience, but it's just like, you know, there's a thing out there called common sense, right? And if you use it, it will get you very, very far.
Go on.
If you don't use it, it's going to land you in situations where you don't need to be in.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like, no, obviously it's not racist to ask someone, are you their slave?
It's racist to waste my time at this point.
I'm trying to. I literally, like, I was getting. I remember because another message that was below that was, there are people outside a window shouting at, like, immigrant families. Like, is there anything that can be done here? And I'm like, just looking, like, for a brief moment, I looked at the two and I was like, oh my God, there's such a disparity between some people's actual understanding of what is happening in the world. Like, you know, what we need to challenge right now is racism that's happening in classrooms. Overt racism when another kid is calling another kid slurs or physically attacking them, or when a teacher is engaged in covert racist behaviour because it's going to hold that kid back in life.
Yeah. Can we define those two, overt and covert? That was my next question.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. Overt racism is very explicit forms of hatred, so it presents itself openly. It's like, I am being racist to you, and I don't care if people see it or I don't care if people notice it. So it's like slurs, being physically attacked, different things like that, right?
Yeah.
Covert racism is more subtle. It's implicit. I think the root of covert racism is that it's able to hide behind plausible deniability. So I was just doing my job. I was only checking those two because I was told to check people. You know, I was only following that person because, you know, I just want to make sure that they're not, that people aren't stealing in the shop, but it's only black people that they follow. Different things like that. So those are forms of covert racism. It's more subtle forms of racism that can hide behind plausible deniability. So, you know, seeing a form of someone who is black, who's applied for, let's say, housing, right? And you know that you have the power in your hands to approve or deny this, but you see that they're black, so you deny it. That's covered. Like, you're able to say, "Oh, I'm just doing my job."
Yeah.
You know that. Like, I don't know that person. I've never met that person. I was literally just
I don't
the
know their parents. I don't know their cousins.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you have structural racism, which is racism that is built into policies and procedures or institutions, and when people are following those policies or procedures or you know, the mannerisms or ways in which that institution works, they're actually being racist. So, for example, let's talk about direct provision. Direct provision is an institution that is set up to house asylum seekers that come to Ireland. It pushes them to the edge of society, so it puts them in hotels that are way out so they can't interact with society. It strips them of their dignity and respect, so it takes away their ability to be able to cook. It takes away their ability to be able to interact and integrate with society. That is a racist, those are racist policies and structures that are, you know, someone's just gone in and doing their job. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm just following this layer. Oh, like, say a hotel worker, you know, but what they're doing by working in that environment is propping up a structurally racist system. So that person might not be racist, but they are in an institution or procedure or a policy that's or enforcing a policy that is racist. So,
okay. But what's the solution there, Leon? Like, obviously, I want to make sure that people aren't getting you wrong. Like, you're not saying, like, quit your job.
No, I'm not saying quit your job.
But
I'm
like question it.
Yeah, there's things
Yeah.
that you can challenge.
Like,
you know,
raise your
like
hand.
if you're at the decision making table
Yeah.
and you're reading through a policy that you know or may affect certain members of different ethnicities or communities or stuff like that, stop it and challenge it and ask yourself, is this really the route that we want to go down?
Yeah.
I think it also comes down to having greater diversity around you and in the room as well. Now I'm not saying that every board in Ireland needs to make up 50% of its it would be better if it did act that way, but it's about having people around you who can look at policies and say, okay, this may impede certain communities or people of certain ethnicities interacting with us, and I don't think we should go down this route because it's going to strip us of the wealth of that diversity. So that I think is who you need around you. I think we need at least one person like that in different boardrooms around the country, and there's different initiatives that are, I think, being set up now to, encourage not only boards but people from the black community to get onto boards of companies and get onto boards of community groups and stuff like that, because those decision making tables are very powerful.
Yeah.
And when you're in the room, just by being in the room, you can make people think, oh, actually, is this how is this going to affect others? So people don't I think understand their true potential, and they need to put themselves out there and get themselves into more rooms like that.
Yeah, like sometimes people don't know where to start from. Sometimes people don't know who to ask or where to ask. But it is actually that question that can help you entertain that curiosity and then hopefully end up somewhere new.
Yeah.
What I really liked, what you said there, is the wealth in diversity.
Mm-hmm.
Diversity is rich. Like the fact that you're exposed to different colors or different people and different storylines will only expand your view and be able, from a business opportunity as well. It's just you can touch point with different people and whatnot.
Absolutely.
If you want more Leons, Leon can find you more Leons. That's basically it. That's how it works. Now, so I know you mentioned about defining racism. Another quite interesting, hot-ish topic is about embracing black culture, right? And where it's always a massive issue with I'm talking about the what's the word, the cosmetic stuff, so braids, lip injections, all that kind of stuff. So the narrative here is that white people are copying black culture, not giving credit where it's due, making it their own. And then when it comes to, let's keep it simple with braids, a white girl with braids won't get into any trouble whatsoever. But then if a black girl has braids, she's labeled as dirty or whatever. Yeah,
and those are discrepancies that ultimately are racist, and those are the things that we need to challenge. There's a number of things on this. There's the blackfishing issue where
blackfishing, that's the word.
People are trying to give off the appearance that they look like they're of African descent. Whether that's darkening their skin, injecting parts of their body to make it look bigger or whatever. That is definitely an issue. That I feel like it's a bit of a sensitive topic because it's telling people how they should dress, but I think it's more so just about having an open conversation with people, saying, well, look, you're doing these things to make yourself appear more like these people, but you're not understanding the cultural nuances of those people. You are completely disregarding the cultural or sentimental value that those features have. And then it's the same with cultural appropriation as well. And I'm very for other people opening up their cultures and allowing people in and allowing people to partake in them. So that question is put to me sometimes: what do you think of a white girl with box braids? And for me, it's not necessarily it's more so an issue of, okay, well, are they being, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this, is a cultural appropriation or cultural appreciation? Are they someone who is doing box braids or putting box braids in their hair and has taken the time to understand like the history behind you know that hairstyle, or the influence that black culture has had on other cultures or on music or whatever it is, and understands the various kind of societal plights that come up against black people and stuff like that? Do they understand that, or are they just oh, this looks cool, so I'm just going to do this? And that's the difference between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation. Someone who is partaking in a culture and is showing their appreciation towards it, whether that's by putting their hair in a certain style or by wearing certain garments or whatever. If they're doing it in a manner that shows a love for that culture and an appreciation and an understanding of that culture, versus someone doing it for a gimmick or a mock, or like obviously Halloween is a big thing now, and I've had my own disaster stories with Halloween.
Really? I've never heard of Halloween.
No, just like dressing up as a terrorist, or by wearing or trying to put on the appearance of wearing generic Arabic clothing. Like, do you know what I mean? That is, it's crazy.
Silly.
Do you know what I mean? Like I've seen people like that in even people who are like in ways connected to my family engaged in that behavior, and I'm like, how do I even start this conversation? How do I even reach out to this person and say, like, because I'm not Arabic, so I'm like, okay, how am I going to approach this? But there's different things like that. Back at a festival, I remember I wore they were selling native headdresses, native Indian headdresses. And I put one on and I was like, oh, this is so cool. But at that time, I had no understanding about, the Trail of Tears or any understanding of the history of Native Americans and, how their culture and lands were absolutely decimated. Do you know what I mean? No understanding of that. Now, I absolutely wouldn't do something like that now.
Exactly. But I think in that moment in time, it's like, it's unfortunate because it's something that you have to take on a case-by-case basis where it was an appreciation of the colours probably in that moment in time, and how extravagant it was. And I think as a society, like through social media, is jumping on people's case immediately without knowing what is what.
Absolutely.
That's basically it when it comes to that sort of stuff. It's so interesting though. I don't mean to be shitting on social media that much. I didn't think that I would. It's more just because it's so beautiful. It's like even with you guys with Black and Irish, like social media has created a whole new medium for independent creators or storytellers to like have an opportunity. So that's so cool, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No,
and like it's amazing. Like, tell us more about Black and Irish. Like, fucking fair play to you, So it's just like, here it goes. Like, the world is going into shit. You've got COVID. George Floyd happens, and then you go Instagram page.
Well, there's a
5-day
gap. There was
a 5-day gap.
George Floyd was killed on the 25th, and Black and Irish launched on the 4th of June. So I'm not going to count that.
5th May, you said?
The 25th of May.
25th of May.
Yeah, so that was, how many days are in May? 31?
No, we're not going to count.
May, so it's 6 days. So it was 9 days. 9 days after the death of George Floyd. So, so George Floyd's killed on the 25th. Over the 26th, 27th, 28th, the videos start circulating.
What was that like for you?
That was insane. That was a very difficult time. That was...
I think it was horrible to watch.
Absolutely horrible. It was essentially watching a man getting killed by police, the people who are supposed to protect you. Like,
what I didn't understand is the people around watching, the team behind it as well. Like, you can stop him. Like, you can see that he's
clearly distressed, and what he's doing is killing him. And obviously they've all received like sentences and stuff like that now for it as well. But what we saw was a massive outpouring of anger, grief, frustration, annoyance at the way that race and racism is perpetuated in America, and how the US interacts with racism, how racism is such an integral part of the institutions over there. But there was not a whole lot of conversation in Ireland. There were some people who were, including myself, who went on to the likes of Twitter and stuff like that to share an incident that had happened with me. But there wasn't I don't think there was a kind of mass conversation around how race and racism was a part of Irish culture as well, and how Ireland deals with racism. There was it was like very focused on the US, and protests in the streets were calling for what happened to George Floyd to be reprimanded and stuff like that. But we have an issue in Ireland around racism, which manifests in very different ways to how it does in the US. We don't have mass violence against black people currently, and we have had incidents, and I'm happy to talk about those in a moment, but not to the same scale or the same level. We don't have the same level of police brutality. We don't have the same kind of structure set up. We don't have the same history. The history of the US is completely different to the history of Ireland. Like, between slavery and colonialism and various other pieces like that, in comparison to mass immigration in Ireland in the kind of late 90s, they're two different worlds. So we needed something that dealt with the issues that we had in Ireland on hand. So, I'll go through kind of some of the immediate reaction to the death of George Floyd. Within the first couple of days of me seeing the video, I had written a letter to George Floyd's parents. Like, I'd written something out that basically talked about how the world is grieving, and how we hope that his name, or how we hope that his legacy will live on in a positive way, despite the such kind of negative thing that had happened. And then there was different protests. There was different. I'd put out a tweet as well. But basically, I was walking out my back garden. I like to do this thing where I walk around my back garden, and I'll just walk for, let's say an hour, at a time. And then when the weather's nice, not in the middle of the winter.
It's also COVID time at that moment
during
too.
COVID, I would, I had a really nice long back garden at the time, so I'd just walk up and down, up and down, up and down. I was thinking about, ways of, I wanted to do something. I didn't know what exactly I wanted to do. But then it just came to me. It was Black and Irish. Let's do something. Let's set something up that helps have authentic conversation about what's happening in Ireland. So I brought the idea to two friends. Was look, I'm thinking about doing this. Would you like to help me? And they're yeah. They were excited about it. They were on board. So we started Black and Irish. The page launched on the 4th of June, and I think by the 7th of June we had 10,000 followers. So it showed that there was an appetite for change in Ireland. And what we were doing was we were sharing the authentic experiences of black and mixed race people in Ireland from their perspective. Yeah. So I was hi, I'm such and such. This is how I experienced racism in school. And this is the fallout from that, and various other pieces like that. And the response to it, the response to it was overwhelmingly positive, 99.999999% positive. We had people like the Taoiseach sharing it out. We had celebrities sharing it out. We had teachers sharing it out. We had loads of people from all across Ireland sharing it. And it was great. And the messages that we were getting about, parents of mixed race children saying, "This is amazing. I'm really happy that you set this up. I've always wanted my kid to have something to look at," and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that was the kind of good side of it, and we were able to share those stories. And within a few weeks, we were around 20,000 followers, and it was really good. Do you know what I mean? But we began to notice that there's issues here, because there's people are sharing their stories. And then what? Then they're okay, great stuff.
I did I did share, I did my piece.
Yeah, back to the same old,
That's it.
So, okay, these things are happening. What now? You know, where do we go from here? So we saw that there was an opportunity to begin working on these issues, and you know, with the amount of people who told us that they experienced racism in school, to the amount of people who said that they were feeling stuck in their job because they couldn't progress because they felt like other people were being promoted before them, to the amount of people who said that like they don't engage with Irish politics, they don't understand it, they don't know about it. So we saw that there was a gap there for Black and Irish to step into and start working on behalf of Black people in Ireland and start doing these things and start going to schools and talking about racism, or going to businesses and talking about you know, Black leadership and Black progression through organisations and diversity and inclusion and stuff like that. And we saw an opportunity for us to educate not just only the Black community but everyone on Irish politics and how it operates, and that's why we released a Black and Irish Politics Handbook, so people can go and look at the different parties that we have in Ireland and what they stand for and what they do, and you know, what you're voting for and stuff like that. You know, making everything accessible. And then there was like the likes of media and entertainment, where we were seeing people, whether they were singers or fashion designers or dancers or whatever, you know, who were doing their thing. They were so talented. They were like amazing, but their work wasn't being mainstreamed. It was kept in the kind of oh, the underground. That's really cool. That's really nice kind of thing. So we said, okay, let's work on this. So we picked 6 different areas, and those are education, business, politics, community, media, and entertainment. And in each of those 6 areas, we said we're going to work on projects that build a better quality of life for Black and mixed race people in Ireland. Exactly. So that's where Black and Irish is now. Yeah. You know, we started as an Instagram account. We exponentially grew, and we saw that, okay, there's opportunities here to actually run projects in Ireland that brings about tangible change.
And it's interesting though, because I feel like with you guys, you're solving a problem, which is a common narrative is often much like, how do I say it? I remember listening to a Candace Owens podcast once. Sorry, but like it was during the George Floyd. No, she's in so much trouble right now, as she fucking should, you know.
Right, yeah.
But it was during the George Floyd stuff, and I remember her saying an interesting statement, which was that when it comes to pushing Black people and embracing them, it is often in the likes of sports and music, rather than business and politics. And with that, and education, and with that, I was like, valid, very valid. In fairness, it's point, like how in the end in America, in the NBA and everything, in hip hop, they're at the top, as they fucking should. Amazing shit. But then it's like, what's happening there, you know? Yeah. And with the likes of you guys, it's really cool that you're including the business, the politics, and the education. Yeah. It's not just a podcast company. You know, like that sells hoodies and that's it, like with like interesting statements. You're actually unwinding these knots in the background that will hopefully like send the next generation into an easier path. Yeah, it's absolutely. Basically,
no, like the Black and Irish is hopefully growing trees. The cachet that I know I'm probably never going to stand in. You know, it's going to hopefully affect my kids and my grandkids and. You know, and build a better life for them, and make sure that they don't experience racism in a classroom, or that when they think of something that they could be, that their skin colour doesn't come into it, that they don't think, oh well, actually I can't do that because I'm Black, or I'm mixed race or whatever. You know, and unfortunately there are people in Ireland, I think, who think like that, and what I want to do is stop everyone in Ireland saying that, you know. So yeah.
Do you genuinely think that racism can be solved?
So I think racism can be managed. There will always be an element of someone who's going to have a racist ideology. I think it would be very, in this day and age with the technology that we have, social media that we have, you know, the mindsets that are out there currently, it's going to be very difficult to eradicate racism, where we're all in this utopia where we all feel, oh my God, like this is great. But I do think that we can relegate racism from the pedestal that it's on right now. Racism is out there at the moment. It's open. And that's based on some of the geopolitical things that are happening between, like, the war in Ukraine, other international protection people needing to come to Ireland, and people seeing this and, being very concerned about their own well-being or ability to access various services in society, and then it's being perpetuated by far right people who are a very loud minority,
Very loud.
who want to stoke those fears and want to push them and say, you should be racist, because if you're not racist, you're going to be replaced, or you're going to not be able to
keep the bloodline pure.
So I think I think we can bring people. I think we can bring more people over to our side. I think there's the anti-racist side, there's the non-racist side, and then there's the racist side. And I think there will always be cohorts in each one. And my goal is to build up the anti-racist side to as big as it possibly can be, to try and incorporate as many of the non-racist people as possible. Anti-racist people actively go out and try and stop racism. They try and stop it wherever they see it. They call other people out on it. Non-racist people, they just go about their life. They're not going to engage in racism. They're not going to, like, if they see someone applying for a job that they have the power to control, they're not going to rule them out because they're black. They're just going to do their job.
Yeah.
And then you have racist people who they're going to say slurs. They're going to attack black people. They're going to attack many other people of different ethnicities and stuff like that. But I think with the rhetoric that we're putting out, I think we're going to get more people from that non-racist side to our side, because the racist side are working as well. They're trying to get as many people from the non-racist side over to their side by saying, you are going to be impacted by the amount of people who are coming into this country in a very, very negative way. You're going to be replaced. You are going to be a victim of crime. You're going to your kids are going to be a victim of crime. Blah 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 blah. So they're putting out a message. They're trying to win people over too. And it's about what culture I think we create in Ireland. Do we create a culture of fear and misunderstanding, and do we all live in that bubble where we don't trust one another? Or do we try and build a culture of empathy and understanding where we all, understand that things aren't going to be easy. We understand that people are coming from war and famine and torture, and they're fleeing those things. And, it might mean that I need to wait in a queue for an extra 2-3 minutes, but isn't it better that they're here with us rather than being killed because of what they look like or who they love or what they do or blah blah blah. So I think that's the culture that we're trying to create, a culture of empathy, a culture of understanding, a culture of fearlessness that says, I'm not going to roll over when racists come to town, kind of thing. I'm going to stand strong, and I'm going to stand up for what I believe in. And I think with that messaging, I think we're going to win more people over, and eventually I do think that racism is going to fall back down to the depths of
it's going to be like
kind of
hidden, between them,
yeah, exactly.
I know that you talk about how it's not enough to just be non-racist, right? But to be anti-racist, does it always need to involve confrontation of sorts?
No, it just means checking yourself and checking your biases. Because while the non-racist person is not going to actively engage in racism, they're still susceptible to it. They still might. They still might engage in a microaggression that really puts someone off for a whole day, or affects someone's mindset, or causes someone to doubt themselves, or ask a question that to you seems harmless, and the intent of it is not that bad, but the impact of that question is huge. Like, where are you really from? That to a non-racist person doesn't seem racist because they're not engaging in anything racist, but they actually are engaging in racist behaviour. So I think that's what I need to say to non-racist people, is that just because you're not actively engaging doesn't mean that you are completely free of this, and that you will always behave and act in a way that is that is anti-racist, that or that is non-racist. So that's what I think the message needs to be. It's that being non-racist is fine, but you could do a whole lot more. You could be a whole lot better, and it doesn't require you changing the world or going out and holding placards or going in and giving workshops. It involves you sitting with yourself and reflecting on biases. It involves you reflecting on how you interact with people. It involves you sitting down and going, do I actually perpetuate stereotypes? Do I actually think that, this group of people are X or Y and Z? So I think that's what non-racist people need to do. Of course, keep being non-racist, keep not engaging in racism, but also try and adapt the mindset that makes sure that you unconsciously don't do anything else as well. And I think that's the switch from non-racism to anti-racism.
Any tips on how to kickstart the discussion in a realistic way?
I think the most real thing that I could say to people is that it's not going to be easy at the start. That it might be difficult, it might be clunky, it might make people feel uncomfortable. Like there's times even with my own family where I talk about racism and they're like,
Here we go
again. Can we not just have a dinner? Do you know what I mean? Like,
shove the Yorkshire pudding down your fucking throat. Like,
yeah, this is a funeral. But no, like, just not like. Look, it might not be the most receptive. People might not be the most receptive to it because it's an uncomfortable conversation. Other people in your family or in your friend group may have acted in ways that were racist in the past. Like, they're not necessarily proud of, and they don't want to talk about it. So I think that's the first thing. Understand that it's like this is not the easiest thing in the world to do. The second thing is like approach it in a manner in that you're trying to educate people and not chastise them. Because the minute that you make someone feel guilt or shame or frustration or anything like that, they're going to close off.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm not talking about this anymore.
Yeah.
So it's approaching it in a way that like rather than sitting on opposite sides of the table, we're both sitting on the same side of the table here, and we're trying to resolve this issue together. And that's how we need to look at racism, rather than it's a you versus me. It's a us versus the problem.
Yeah. I
think if you can position your conversation in that manner, it's really going to make a difference in how people receive what you're trying to say. And then the third thing is like, I'm not going to say be lighthearted, but don't like, and this is probably me trying to give my own self advice. Don't be so serious all the time. While you have the conversations, remember to have fun with people and remember to, have a bit of a laugh as well, because you can very quickly lose yourself. If you becoming an activist is not easy. You can very quickly lose parts of yourself that you really enjoy, that are more lighthearted or more relaxed, because it's constantly on your brain. Like, that racism doesn't shut off, so you don't either. But by doing that, you can, I don't know, you can just lose a part of yourself, or
you could spark,
Yeah,
like life is silly as well. It
is, and you need to be able to have that laugh as well. You need to be able to not take yourself so seriously sometimes, and and I think that is why Black and Irish does what it does. We do the serious stuff, but we do the fun stuff as well. Yeah. Because I think if we didn't do the fun stuff, we'd lose our minds.
Oh, 100%.
I think we all would have burnt out 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Like a year into this. And yeah, we wouldn't have been able to do the things that we do. Like I'm going and I'm speaking to the Garda Commissioner one day. I'm going and I'm addressing a crowd of 50,000 people another day about racism and stuff like that. Like that stuff is heavy. I'm not just walking up on that stage. I'm thinking about it for weeks beforehand. Where I'm constantly going over my mind what I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it and different things like that. And that stuff is heavy. And if I didn't let off steam, I would lose my mind. I would go crazy.
No, play is a big part of life.
A huge part. And if you can do it in a way that builds on your message and builds on what you're trying to do, then what's the problem? You know what I mean? Because I have had some people challenge me saying, you're being an activist, but then on the other hand, you're running a get-together or like a cookout or a culture connect or whatever. The different things that we do. Yeah. Exactly. Do you know what I mean?
Like,
there's part of the times where I want to go tell people to, stick it.
Shove it up their ass. I said it for you. You're welcome.
Thank you. But, you have to, again, my principles wouldn't allow me to do that. It's, bringing people along and trying to help them to understand that, like, look, if I don't do this, I'm going to lose my mind.
Yeah.
I'm going and I'm educating teachers and helping classrooms to become less racist for your children. So if you want to do it, by all means,
fucking it.
Go ahead. But if you don't want to do it, that's fine. I'll do it. But let me do my thing. Do you know what I mean? Let me have a bit of fun as well. So yeah, I think that's the kind of that's what I'd have to say on that. Like, be the activist, but you know, have fun.
Yeah.
While you're doing it.
I think that applies to just discussions in general.
Yeah.
You know, I always go by the one that yells the loudest is the one in the wrong. And it is in that way where it's like, just welcome people.
Yeah.
Welcome people. Let them feel safe to share said things.
Yeah.
And then, like, let's dance, baby, sort of.
Yeah.
And then you can figure it out. Because if you're just hostile,
You're never going to win anyone by being hostile.
No,
You know?
never. No, I'll say nothing. But yeah, like, it's just one of those things where, like, you just won't be pleasant to be around.
Exactly.
They'll avoid you. They'll avoid you like the plague, except for some select shows. But anyways, thank you so much, Leon. I really
Thank you
had
for having
fun.
me. I really enjoyed this.
This was fucking amazing. And there you go, I swore. I had to, okay?
You swore a couple of times now.
Did I?
Yeah, we said at the start that we
Oh,
wouldn't,
whoopsies. There, I thought I
There we
was
are.
good and stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, everyone, for listening and watching. Bye-bye.